Now it's my honor to invite Honorable Sikyong Penpa Tsering, President of Central Tibetan Administrations. May I respectfully invite him to deliver a closing address.
Thank you. We have come to the end of the program, and you have heard our Taiwanese friends through Ambassador Lee. We heard our Uyghur friends, I don't like to call them Xinjiang, because that's the Chinese name for East Turkestanis. So we prefer, but then I always said you should also be doing the right thing because it was Xinjiang report, so it should have been Uyghur report or East Turkestan report in the UN, not the Xinjiang report. You heard our Uyghur friends. We have always been in touch with each other, but again, we have to look forward to how we can start new initiatives. I hope there will be new initiatives because some people are also working on the historical background of Uyghur. That's one thing. And you heard our Hong Konger friends, our Chinese friends who are also suffering under the communist government. So in future, I have always told our Hong Konger friends also that you are all very young, educated, but that you need to come together. You know, we meet a lot of Hong Kongers, but everybody is acting in their own different ways and not able to come together. Because when we face an opponent like China, every one of us have to come together. This is very important for all those who are suffering under communist government. Now, from our side, we heard you. There were a lot of recommendations, suggestions, but then you also should be watching us as to what we are doing and what we were doing. Because after we took over, we made a strategic shift in our approach to achieve the middle way policy. And that, if you watch carefully about our strategy, that involves not only getting the Tibetan community together, irrespective of your different positions on how to go back to Tibet, but also to get the international community on our side. Because when we follow the middle way, we have to seek a peaceful, negotiated, mutually beneficial solution that could be lasting. Because if you look around the world with all this violence happening around, you don't know whether you're resolving one problem or creating another problem for future, or more problems in future. So this approach is also to seek governmental support on the historical status of Tibet as an independent state. Chinese have been lying about Tibetan history. They have been distorting Tibetan history for so many decades. And many people think that Tibet must have been part of China since antiquity. So we have to set the historical record right. We are not asking governments for too much. We are only saying accept the truth. Because when China is lying, and then if the international community accepts that lie as the truth, and then concedes their position by saying Tibet is a part of China, or People's Republic of China, then you become an accomplice in China's claim of sovereignty over Tibet. So that is why I've been telling governments, on the one hand, you keep saying Tibet is part of PRC, like a parrot, what the Chinese government wants you to say. And on the other hand, you keep saying, oh, we appreciate negotiations between His Holiness, representative of His Holiness Dalai Lama and the Chinese government. I keep saying these two positions don't go together. It's contradictory in nature. When every government keeps saying Tibet is part of People's Republic of China, then where is the reason for China to come and talk to us? And when you talk about negotiation, you are closing the door for Tibetans. So I again want to stress what I said at the opening ceremony, that Tibet is a nation with a civilization, with a language, with a culture, with a religion that is very, very distinct from China and all its neighboring countries. And China is a colonialist. We need to accept that. And Tibet is an occupied country. We need to stress on that. That is important for the Tibetans, because we are not asking you to lie. We are just asking you to accept the truth of what Tibet was. That is the reason why I came with that thick book written by a Chinese professor, and also looking at Tibetan history from an international legal perspective, what Michael Van Walt had done. So when we reach out to China, of course, if there has to be a peaceful resolution on the Sino-Tibet conflict, I don't call it a Tibet issue, or what is called in the US Resolve Tibet Act, it's Sino-Tibet dispute. It's a dispute between two nations. Issue could be small, it could be between two people, between two communities, but you have to highlight the cause as it is. It's a Sino-Tibet conflict or a Sino-Tibet dispute. You have to give the proper name and give the correct status to that dispute. And that is very important. So right now, we try to engage with China, but if you look at all the policies of the Chinese government, which you have been discussing over the last 2 days, the overarching policy is if there are no minorities, or if there are no nationalities, then there won't be nationality issues. And China is always trying to downgrade Tibet to a nationality issue or a minority issue. That is why we have always been saying it's a issue or a cause that concerns two nations. It's not just a minority issue. It's not just indigenous people's rights. It's not just religious freedom. It's not just linguistic freedom. It's a combination of all these that defines Tibetan nation and Tibetan identity, which we are trying to preserve. So, till such a time that we are able to reach a resolution with China, we'll have to reach out to the international community. Of course, there were a lot of suggestions, there were a lot of wish lists, but we have to look at the reality of the situation and then navigate our way through the turbulent times when there are a lot of disturbance to the international legal order. And we have been, I think, quite successful over the last few years pushing the narrative ahead. And I really thank Undersecretary Azrizia when she was the Special Coordinator for Tibetan issues. She has been very supportive, and even now she continued to support. She has joined the board of the International Campaign for Tibet, and she leads the Human Rights First organization, and still very much connected. And I hope this association will continue. And I also appreciate all the honorable members of parliament here from Switzerland and around, including our friends from Mexico. Your participation gives a lot of inspiration to the Tibetans inside Tibet. The Tibetans inside would see these pictures and feel that there are people who are concerned about us, and that will sustain our movement in the long term. So when we reach out to the international community, it's not easy to convince everybody. Everybody has their own national interests. So we have to align our national interest with that nation's interest. Sometimes people ask me, why do you go to Mexico or Brazil or Colombia? And I said, there are things that we can do that others cannot do. We have to educate people in Latin America who has very little understanding of what China is doing around the world. So these are some of the efforts that we have been taking, and we have been quite successful in our advocacy work in the United States, in Europe, elsewhere. We still need to work harder. That is why we need your consistent support to push forward this narrative. But then again, when we talk about human rights situations in China and elsewhere, it's quite depressing under the prevailing global situation. But then again, we have to understand that China, some people think China is a huge monolith. It's infallible. It cannot be broken. But there are a lot of chinks in the armor. China has a lot of economic problems. They struggle in increasing the domestic consumption. That's why you have a deflationary trend, where the whole world is witnessing inflationary trend. China is the only country that has a deflationary trend. And China is dependent on export to grow, to lead its growth. So I have been asking governments not to give business to China. You have to understand now, the reality is it seems more like all roads lead to Beijing. If you look at the developments over the last several months, leaders going to Beijing. But then I would like to believe that it's more optics than real trust, because to build trust with China is it's an uphill task. It's very, very difficult. We live in India. People often ask us relations between India and China and the growing, relations. I say, yeah, it's there. But then if you go deeper, it will take much more than just few trade agreements. And China is pushing its own way all around the world, like zero tariff, because that benefits China. China has every product to sell to the world, so that's why they want zero tariff on everything. And we have already seen that Southeast Asian countries have increased their imports from China by about 20% over the last several months. Europe also sees this because of China's stranglehold on rare earth and how it's coercing government to buy their products. Otherwise, they won't sell rare earth. The same case is with the United States. So I also reflect, I call the present China, it's no more a communist government. I agree with Professor Nicholas. There is no more a communist government. It's more like an authoritarian capitalist with a garb of communism. It's no more a communist state at all. So we have to understand all this, and you can also understand the paranoia that's building in the minds of Chinese leadership. Of course, we who live in democracy has a strong foundation built on many pillars. If you break one pillar also, it may be able to build it back. But China's authoritarian system is built on one pillar, now with Xi Jinping at the core. So if that pillar falls, that could be, that pillar falls, then the whole structure will fall. So there will be a lot of opportunities. If you look at the change, the strategic shift in our approach, not only to reach out to the Chinese government, you will also find that that will open a lot of space in future. We are not restricting ourselves to a particular position. Right now, of course, we are committed to the middle way policy, but then in future, you never know what's going to happen to China. So we will be looking at different scenarios in China and see how we can take opportunities and also meet challenges. We have to prepare ourselves from now as to what could happen to China and how we can take opportunities and also meet challenges. So with these thoughts, I want to thank all the participants for your contribution. We will be doing our own things. We will also be looking to collaborate with our friends and also work with like-minded countries to push forward our narratives